Good morning, and welcome to today's webcast. Ignite your financial forecasting process. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thank you for viewing our webcast series. Before we begin, please keep the following in mind. You can customize how you view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls of the top right of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons that relate to a different aspect of our session. You can download a PDF of today's slides from the Slide Deck and Handouts widget. You can ask questions by typing in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. This presentation is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
And with that, I am pleased to introduce today's presenter from Moss Adams, Loren Den Herder, Managing Director. Loren is a firm leader of business intelligence and corporate performance management. He helps businesses improve their processes to become more efficient and make better decisions. And with that, Loren, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you, everybody, for joining today's presentation about igniting your financial forecast. What we'll see is that there are kind of three main areas that play into this. First is rolling forecasts, and then there's business agility, and then increasing your decision support. But you'll see that all of these kind of interlinked to give you that deeper insight and guidance from your financial forecast. So just to begin today, we'll talk about rolling forecast and automated planning and how that works together. Before we get started, I'd just like to know a little bit about our audience here. So we have a polling question, and this will help us to understand the perspective that you're coming from. So this is, the question is your current forecasting process providing the timely insights that you need? And it's kind of with the focus on timeliness there. And of course, at the top, there's, yes, you have, highly engaged with rolling forecasts. So it's a process of kind of reforecasting over time. And then many of our clients are, somewhat, but they need to adjust the process periodically for special situations that creep up in the business environment. Some, rarely use this process, although when they do see some value with it. And then, of course, don't really use that type of process, or they are not getting the kind of insights that are needed. What we see is that this kind of varies over time with our clients, and as they tend to add more automation, that it tends to creep up across here. But even with automation, it's good to keep in mind some of the things that we've talked about, what we'll be talking about here with rolling forecast and agility and increasing your decision support. Yeah, and so with that, we can take a quick look at the results here. And so this is fairly common for us to see that, there's this, somewhat are engaged or getting information that they need, but they have to more or less continuously account for special situations. Others have a process really dialed in, but then, for those that are rarely or, are not really, using a budget per se, there's some real value to be had from this. So with that, how about if we just talk about a quick illustration of what rolling forecast is. So there are two things, the top and the bottom. The annual planning at the top, it gives you a view what that plan looks like. So starting at the beginning of the year, you'll have 1 month of forecast, and then you'll be looking to see what are the actuals that are year forecast, and looking to see 1 month of actuals and how that's really shaping up. And then as time moves forward, you're seeing more and more of the actuals played out over time, but still at the end, it's really built all on past results, and you kind of have that cliff at the end of the year that has to be rebuilt the next year. Now compare that to a rolling forecast where you're continuously looking forward. So as you make your plan is looking not only at this month, but what do we want this month to be next year? And then planning, the next month or the next quarter, how did that shape up with the actuals? And then looking forward, okay, how do we make a plan of where we want to be a year out from now? And that really adds a lot of power and insight to that planning process, because your entire team then is not just looking at near term, but you're looking at longer term prospects for growth and changes in the business. So it's quite a powerful type of a concept. What we find is that there's this very interesting number out there that 64% of annual targets are obsolete in 4 to 6 months. And the reality of that's kind of a shocking number. And that all the time and effort that goes into building up these annual plans and getting them approved and locked down and work with the team, that in really a fairly short time, they're obsolete. And just an example of that, so you make your plan and you go into your first period and sales just knocks it out of the park. Now that the numbers are great, do you really want to then just kind of rest right there? Or do you want to kind of recreate your plan and capitalize on what just happened and say, hey, there's something important that's happened here, and we need to update our plans and capitalize on that thing that, the increased sales, and to find out what's driving those sales. So with that being said, it's just important that your plans are never out of date, so they're always a good guide for the business. And then, frequently importing the data that you have from your actual is something that will help drive your business decisions and business drivers. And then it gives you a way to have comparative reports, and that it'll keep everybody on track and with a good view into the business. There's another really interesting statistic that's out there, and that is that nearly 60% of small to medium-sized businesses rarely or never look at their data. There are good reasons for this. There's, people are busy, schedules are full, and you're basically managing by taking a conservative view, fiscal view to expenses, and staying focused on the task ahead. But what happens here is that there are trends that develop over time, and trends are a bit subtle. And if you can see them and then capitalize on them, if there's real business value in the midst of that, you'll kind of see this as we move forward here. So with any business, there are really 4 main forces that are, working with the business and trying to keep everything on track. And so, one is just volatility that's out there in the marketplace. Another is complexity within the organization, how the actual business performance is going, and then there's disruption. And, of these 4 things, 2 of them are internal and 2 of them are external. So the ones that are internal, you have a little more control over. So this concept of, navigating the complexity of every business has a level of complexity in the market that they're operating. But then navigating that and managing that is something that plans will help you with, so that your whole team is knowing how you're going to go about this and what are the overall goals that you're looking at. That drives right into managing business performance. Again, it's an internal thing. It's how you manage the business. It's how you make your plans, keep everybody going in the same direction. That will manage your business performance and drive discussions around that. But then there are 2 that are really outside of your control, but you really still have to manage what you're doing with them. One is volatility. So within the business environments that you're working in, volatility will happen, and you just need to work with it. So, things in the kind of overall economy that would affect your business. The other is disruption. So you may have a competitor or competing product or service into the market, an alternative into the market, and you don't have control over that, but you still need to plan for what do you do with it, how do you adjust to the new marketplace and stay in front of it. And this is where staying ahead of automation will help you stay ahead of the curve and manage how you run your business with that. Here's a view then of if you have automated planning, you're running rolling forecasts of what you get with that. So it's always insightful to have kind of multiple versions to work with because it's great for comparative analysis. So for example, when you have your budget put together, that budget or that plan, what it really defines is the line of where the business is, quote, safe. So if you operate to the budgets, you'll have good results at the end of the period or at the end of the year with that budget. And then as actuals come in, you're comparing that just to say, are we above or below that line, and do we need to make any adjustments? And then the forecast is saying, great, that budget is, of course, still safe. We have the actuals that are coming in, but do we need to change that? So that forecast would represent, when you're doing a rolling forecast, you'll have multiples of those that show adjustments, and those adjustments kind of redefine the safe path that also capitalizes on the opportunities that you have in front of you. So that really leads to what you'll get from agility in the business, being able to work quickly, but to have these different versions of your budget compared to actuals, you really need some automation around that so that you have the tools to move quickly with it. So here's just an example of tool that you may have that would help with that automation. And you really want to kind of tools to be business focused, meaning it's not an IT focus, but the business really has full control over how these are shaped and how they operate. So on the right side of the screen there is a tabular list of how performance is going and what the plan is, but then some overall metrics and key performance indicators on the left that show what is the results of these plans. For this version, what would that result be? And you want that to be interactive, and in this case, it's really best if it's something that is what's called SaaS-based, so software as a solution, where it's accessible through a browser, and your team can easily get to it. That ease of getting to the tool really adds to the ability of the team to access the data on a regular basis and then get the benefits of automated planning. And so, there's two kind of main benefits here. One is to increase the business agility, and then the other is to increase the decision support as well. And just a quick example of what this would be like is that if you're running your process through spreadsheets, you'll find that if you're really on top of it, your actuals will come in at the end of the period, and then it'll take a couple of weeks to get it together, submitting the reports to the budget managers. That may happen within a couple of weeks. And then, so now you're kind of halfway through the next period, and there's no way to change the results that actually happened. If you replay the same scenario and you have automated planning, right in the midst of the period that you're in, you can look at how the numbers are shaping up and then make decisions in that period that would define how that period can actually end up. Those kind of decision-making within the decision-making window actually has a huge ROI that will pay for any investment that you put into automated planning. So just some quick examples here of what we mean by rolling forecast. One there is just to recalibrate planning for key business drivers. So this means in a very timely way to stay in front of those business drivers and how they're working with the business and what would be a near-term and a longer-term goal for that. The bottom bullet point there too is just a very focused one. So if you have a link to market prices, contract terms, so you can actually adjust your terms in a near real-time fashion and have your team on the same page. Yeah, having your team on the same page is really important for driving insightful discussions about how your plans are shaping up and what are the opportunities there in front of the business. So it also drives business agility. What this means is that you can very quickly recognize trends that are happening and then be able to quickly make decisions on that and make those decisions with confidence. And that's really a key thing here, is that if you can make decisions with confidence, then as you move forward, you're much more effective at then looking at the effect of those decisions and then quickly adjusting for whatever adjustments need to be made as you move forward. And that's what gives you the confidence to really drive this through that kind of decision making is that you know that you also see a rapid response from what those decisions are. And then it just helps to simplify those planning scenarios, and then you'll see what the net effect is on your business output. So that kind of transitions into business agility. And so, rolling forecasts and business agility are really kind of highly linked here. But what's behind a lot of this is the comparison between what is the process like when you're working within a spreadsheet type process or an automated planning type process. A lot of it comes down to speed. How quickly and how accurately can you get the data together, get it into meaningful reports, disseminate the right information to the right people. So you'll see that that speed that drives agility is just necessarily slower in spreadsheets than if you automate that, and a lot of the heavy lifting is done for you. Same thing with data management. Data management is, how do you get that data? How do you get your actuals data? Align it with all of your planning numbers, in the right period, and then separate out the numbers for people's area of responsibility, and then get that information to them. And doing that on a very frequent basis. So in automation, people basically just have this at their fingertips on an everyday basis, and they can see how the period is shaping up. And then the drill down is also a very important capability where you see a number and you want to see what's driving underneath that. You can follow links in spreadsheets, but truly drilling into the numbers is something that is super powerful inside of an automated type of a solution. And then just aligning the organization, and that was going to come up here a little more as we continue through this. So as you're going through that process, and when you're at the executive and management level, what you really need is an organization to be engaged. And what that engagement means is that you're all working from the same set of numbers. There's a common trusted source of truth of what those numbers are. And then the conversations are about what does it mean and what do we do, rather than where do the numbers come from and how do we get to the numbers. And so, to get to that position, you really need a system that will help you to spend less time on low value added tasks. And what that means is just basically going out and all the time it takes to get data from your source systems, get them into a meaningful format, and then publish them out. Increasing confidence in the numbers and the ownership of the numbers has a lot to do with visibility. So if you make the numbers very visible to people in their area of responsibility, it drives discussion. Driving discussion around that will reveal if there's truly a problem with the numbers, then those problems will get fixed because they end up in the conversation, in the real management conversation. But through the conversation, you're also validating that, when they're true, discussion quickly turns like, what do we do with this? What do we do with this information? How do we capitalize on the opportunity? And then once you have that level of discussion going, it really drives insights into the analysis. And you want that to be a click away. So it's easy. It's not a heavy lift to go out and drill into and see what's happening. Another way to look at this is these two triangles. So the current state is when you really don't have a lot of automation. So you'll spend a lot of time, like over half the time, in just operations, getting the data together and get it to a point that you can actually work with it. And then there'll be another 30% of times is once you have the data to then turn it into something that is reportable and has some meaningful output, and disseminate that out to the team. And then once you have that, then there's a small amount of time left for decision making to get business insights from the analysis. That's where the decision making happens. So the key here is to really vastly increase the amount of time that's available for that decision making. So with automation, you get to just turning that triangle upside down, where you have over half the time available. And getting the data is only 20% of the time or less is what we find. And that is what really leads to business agility, is that ability to get to a point that you're in that decision-making mode. That decision-making mode is driven a whole lot by what we call communication fluidity. So if you have confidence in the numbers, they're visible, and everybody's working from the same source of truth, then it drives conversations. And you want those conversations to be able to happen anywhere across the organization. So, as a manager in your area of responsibility, you want to talk to others in related areas with their area of responsibility and have meaningful discussions about how collaboration and changes and planning really helps you to capitalize on opportunity, understand the current business environment, and those different influencers in business that are taking place at that time, and in your planning window as it looks forward, not only now in the near term, but in the longer term as you're running the rolling forecast. So this communication here really keeps things in the decision-making window, meaning as you're having that conversation, it's within the period, and you can make decisions that will truly influence how things are happening and keep you on track with your plans and your reforecast. The solutions that you want to work with should be business solution focused. What that means is you don't want to have kind of a heavy IT solution where when you make changes, you need to go through this so-called dev test cycle, and it takes a long time to get there. But rather, this, the second bullet here, this rapid experimentation to uncover value. This is where, if you have your data available and it's accessible to business people and business managers, and they can create their own reports and dashboards and analyze that data, they can experiment with something, and if it's something they like, they can basically put it into quote production or just make it part of the business process. If not, there's very little invested in it, and you can just move forward without it. But that uncovers a lot of value in a changing business environment when you can have the business people really have control of their destiny and the data that they're working with. So that really drives to how automation improves decision support. As you're seeing, this is really very all interlinked. So if you have automation and it's driving rolling forecast and you're moving those plans forward in a very dynamic way, then you become a business agile organization. That business agile organization is really driving communication fluidity, where it's not a question about the source of the numbers, but really a question about how are we optimizing within the business environment that we're in. And so there are a few key things here that help kind of draw the line between information and planning and the overall results. So just to mention a few of the bullets here, so like a top one, when you're information driven, the net result of that is that you're able to make faster, better decisions. And there's a ton of value in that. So as you make your decisions, you can make it with confidence, knowing that you can analyze the results of that very quickly and then optimize, which gets us to the second bullet. It's like you'll know the overall and have well communicated the overall strategic thrust of the business. And you'll then be able to optimize your plans to prioritize the things that are most important for that strategy. And then kind of on the other end of the spectrum, towards the end, early detection has a lot to do with managing your risk. So being able to see trends as they're happening and to adjust to those trends, that operational agility is really key in managing that risk, and then having a consistent set of goals. So to kind of highlight this, there was a survey that was done a while back, and it was the results of it were quite insightful, and this whole thing about automation driving rolling forecast and agility and decision-making support. And so this is showing that up to 93% we're seeing a significant improvement. In fact, there's 65% saw a significant acceleration of their planning process. And this is really what's driving that ability to be agile in your business, is that ability to see the results of your decision making, be able to redo your plans very, very quickly and reforecast and have that as a new target that everybody is working from. Another one here is that, with that time that was saved, were you able to add more, higher value or focus on higher value added tasks for the business? And again, a significant number was 20% or more. But I'd like to highlight that also a 50% improvement, or 41% improvement, or 50% or better at focusing on high value-added tasks. And what that means is the ability to see the data, have your analysis, drive communications that led to decisions that were very important to the business. Then also empowering planners to be more business or more strategic. So, with those decisions making support and the ability to spend more time on that analysis, over 80% felt that they were much more strategic to the business. And this is something that will really help your budget managers when they're engaged with their numbers and they're able to make decisions in the decision-making windows and stay on track, capitalize on opportunities. There is real business value that happens from that, and this is what ends up paying for the effort of going through an automated planning process. So now let's just take a minute here and look ahead, with what this can lead to in your business. So, just some of the benefits of automating your planning process, and this automation is really what ends up, igniting your financial plans as they move forward. Is this automation, it powers the rolling forecast capabilities. So ability to not only have what is your annual planning, keep track of that, but then see as your business environment changes, how can you stay in front of that and have multiple different plans that are adjusting as you go forward and see what the differences are between those in a very automated way in real time. It, of course, makes it much more efficient. But what I'd like to point out is the last bullet here is that your what-if analysis, it needs to be rapid and simple and efficient. So you need to be able to experiment with the data that you have, with the plans that are being made. And when you experiment with those and you come to some important conclusions, have that drive communication that then will make the decision-making across the organization consistent and aligned with the strategy. Kind of in the midst of all of this is that middle bullet there where, with automation, you are going to get things like, easy to report, management tools, et cetera. What I wanted to close with here is that as you're going through this process, there is these kind of 5 steps. There's a positive kind of virtuous cycle that adds, one on top of the other. So as you get into automation and you're driving the rolling forecast, what you're going to find is that you're able to be responsive. So you have the information at your fingertips. It is coming in on a regular basis. We usually have it come in on a daily basis, and you can see how is the period shaping up. When you have that kind of information, then you can be adaptable. So now you can say, I understand what's going on. I understand how that shapes up according to our plan. And now how do I use that information and dig into it and drill into it and then capitalize on the opportunity that's at hand and then look forward to what is coming up. So that just helps you be adaptable. When you're adaptable, then you can have those conversations across the organization that help you to collaborate and work together for a consistent, strategy-focused plan that is making the best use of your business environment. When people are collaborating at that level, then they'll be empowered because they have information that's very powerful and it's insightful and it uncovers where the real opportunity is at hand and how to capitalize on that. When you have that kind of information, then you're in control. And so this is the kind of thing that your automated planning, rolling forecast, decision-making support, being agile can really drive to. So really appreciate the time that you spent with us here today. We're here to help, and so we'd love to start a conversation if this is applicable to you. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Loren, for a great presentation today. If you had questions that you submitted, we'll be doing our best to follow up with you after the webcast. And here is a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time.